Hey guys, it's Jasper, and today I'm going to be reading a fairy tale from W.B. Yeats's collection of fairy stories called Irish Fairy and Folktales. Cute little book. I have to say, this is just one of my favorite fairy tale books in the way that it is just the perfect size. I've put it in my purse so many times to take on dates with my wonderful husband. He always reads me the fairy stories as I secretly pull it out. You know, having a beer? Time for a fairy story. Going for a walk by the river? Time for a fairy story. Going to the movies? Time for a fairy story. You know, during the commercials, or not commercials, the commercials that come at the beginning. Anyways, it's a lovely little selection. The fairy story we're going to be reading today is called Master and Man. It was a story that W.B. Yeats credits to T. Crofton Croker. Now, as a preface to the story, I'm going to ask any Irish folks that may be listening for some measure of kindness, and even those who aren't Irish but certainly know I am not pronouncing things well. I'm gonna boldly stumble over some words and phrases that I know I'm mispronouncing, so be kind. Now for today's Irish story, it only seems fitting. We have an Irish whiskey, and for me, again, that's a Jameson. Ta-ta-ta. So, as always, pour yourself something yummy to drink, relax, and enjoy. And as always, guys, cheers. Master and Man. Billy McDaniel was once as likely a young man as ever shook his brow at a patron, emptied a quart or handled a shayleg, fearing for nothing but the want of drink, caring for nothing but who should pay for it, and thinking of nothing but how to make fun over it, drunk or sober. A word and a blow was ever the way with Billy McDaniel, and a mighty easy way it is of either getting into or ending a dispute. More is the pity that, through the means of his thinking and fearing and caring for nothing, this same Billy McDaniel fell into bad company. For surely the good people are the worst of all company anyone could come across. It so happened that Billy was going home one clear frosty night not long after Christmas. The moon was round and bright, and although it was as fine a night as heart could wish for, he felt pinched with cold. "By my word," chattered Billy, "a good drop of liquor would be no bad thing to keep a man's soul from freezing in him, and I wish I had the full measure of the best." "Never wish it twice, Billy," said a little man in a three-cornered hat, bound all about with gold lace and with great silver buckles in his shoes, so big that it was a wonder how he could carry them. And he held out a glass as big as himself, filled with as good liquor as ever eye looked on or lip tasted. "Success, my little fellow," said Billy McDaniel, nothing daunted, though well he knew the little man to belong to the good people. "Here's your health, anyway, and thank you kindly, no matter who pays for the drink." And he took the glass and drained it to the very bottom, without ever taking a second breath to it. "Success," said the little man, "and you're heartily welcome, Billy, but don't think to cheat me as you have done others. Out with your purse and pay me like a gentleman." "Is it I pay you?" said Billy. "Could I not just take you up and put you in my pocket as easily as a blackberry?" "Billy McDaniel," said the little man, getting very angry, "you shall be my servant for 7 years and a day, and that is the way I will be paid, so make ready to follow me." When Billy heard this, he began to be very sorry for having used such bold words towards the little man, and he felt himself, he could not tell how, obliged to follow the little man the livelong night about the country, up and down and over hedge and ditch and through bog and brake without any rest. When morning came and began to dawn, the little man turned round to him and said, "You may be go home, Billy. But on your peril, don't fail to meet me in the fort field tonight, or if you do it, you may be the worse for you in the long run. If I find you a good servant, you'll find me an indulgent master." Home went Billy McDaniel, and though he was tired and weary enough, never a wink of sleep could he get for thinking of the little man. But he was afraid not to do his bidding, so he got up in the evening, and away he went to Fortfield. He was not long there before the little man towards him came and said, "Billy, I want you to go a long journey tonight, so saddle one of my horses, and you may saddle another for yourself, as you're going to go along with me and may be tired after your walk last night." Billy thought this was very considerate of his master, and thanked him accordingly. "But," said he, "if I may be so bold, sir, I would ask which is the way to your stable, for never a thing do I see but the fort here, and the old thorn tree in the corner of the field, and the stream running at the bottom of the hill, the bit of bog over against us." "Ask no questions, Billy," said the little man, "but go over to that bit of bog and bring me 2 of the strongest rushes you can find." Billy did accordingly, wondering what the little man would be at, and he picked 2 of the strongest rushes he could find, with a little bunch of brown blossom struck at the side of each, and brought them back to his master. "Get up, Billy," said the little man, taking one of the rushes from him and striding across it. "Where shall I get up, please your honour?" said Billy. "Why, upon the horseback like me, to be sure," said the little man. "Is it after making a fool of me you'd be," said Billy, "bidding me to get a horseback upon that bit of rush? Maybe you want to persuade me that the rush I pulled but a little while out of the bog over there is a horse." "Up, up! No words," said the little man, looking very angry. "The best horse you ever rode was but a fool to it." So Billy, thinking all this was a joke and fearing to vex his master, straddled across the rush. "Boram! Boram! Boram!" cried the little man 3 times, which in English means to become great. And Billy did the same after him. Presently the rushes swelled up into fine horses, and away they went full speed. But Billy, who had put the rush between his legs without much minding how he did it, found himself sitting on the horseback the wrong way, which was rather awkward, with his face to the horse's tail, and so quickly had his steed started off without him that he had no power to turn around, and there was therefore nothing for it but to hold on by the tail. At last they came to their journey's end and stopped at the gate to do a fine house. "Now, Billy," said the little man, "do as you see me do and follow me close. But as you did not know your horse's head from his tail, mind that your own head does not spin around until you can't tell whether you're standing on it or on your heels. For remember that old liquor, though able to make a cat speak, can make a man dumb." The little man then said some queer kind of words, out of which Billy could make no meaning. But he contrived to say them after him for all that, and in they both went through the keyhole of the door, and through one keyhole after another, until they got into the wine cellar, which was well stored with all kinds of wine. The little man fell to drinking as hard as he could, and Billy, no way disliking the example, did the same. "The best of masters are you, surely," said Billy to him. "No matter who is the next, and well pleased will I be with your service if you continue to give me plenty to drink." "I have made no bargain with you," said the little man, "and will make none. But up and follow me." Away they went through keyhole after keyhole, and each mounting upon the rush, which he left at the hall door, scampered off, kicking the clouds before them like snowballs, as soon as the words "Boram! Boram! Boram!" had passed their lips. When they came back to the fort field, the little man dismissed Billy, bidding him to be there the next night at the same hour. Thus did they go on, night after night, shaping their course one night here and another night there, sometimes north and sometimes east and sometimes south, until there was not a gentleman's wine cellar in all Ireland they had not visited, and could tell the flavour of every wine in it as well. Aye, better than the butler himself. One night, when Billy McDaniel met the little man, as usual in the fort field, and was going to the bog to fetch the horses for their journey, his master said to him, "Billy, I shall want another horse tonight, for maybe we bring back more company than we take." So Billy, who now knew better than to question any order given to him by his master, brought a third rush, much wondering who it might be that would travel back in their company, and whether he was about to have a fellow servant. "If I have," thought Billy, "he shall go and fetch the horses from the bog every night, for I don't see why I'm not, every inch of me, as good as a gentleman as my master." Well, away they went, Billy leading the third horse, and never stopped until they came to a snug farmer's house in the country Limerick, close under the old castle of Carrigonil, that was built, they say, by the great Brian Boru. Within the house there was a great carousing going forward, and the little man stopped outside for some time to listen, then turning round all of the sudden said, "Billy, I will be 1,000 years old tomorrow." "God bless us, sir," said Billy. "Will you?" "Don't say those words again, Billy," said the little old man, "or you'll be my ruin forever. Now, Billy, as I will be 1,000 years in the world tomorrow, I think it full time for me to get married." "I think so too, without any kind of doubt at all," said Billy, "if ever you mean to marry." "And to that purpose," said the little man, "have I come all the way to Craignail, for in this house this very night is young Darby Riley, going to be married to Bridget Rooney, and as she is tall and comely girl, she has come of decent people, I think of marrying her myself, and taking her off with me." "And what will Darby Riley say to that?" said Billy. "Silence!" said the little man, putting on a mighty severe look. "I did not bring you here to ask questions." And without holding further argument, he began saying the queer words which had the power of passing him through the keyhole as free as air, and which Billy thought himself mighty clever to be able to say after him. In they both went, and for the better viewing the company, the little man perched himself up as nimbly as a cock sparrow upon one of the big beams which went across the house over all their heads, and Billy did the same upon another facing him. But not being much accustomed to roosting in such a place, his legs hung down as untidy as they may be, and it was quite clear he had not taken pattern after the way in which the little man had bundled himself up together. If the little man had been a tailor all his life, he could not have sat more contentedly upon his hunches. There they were, both master and man, looking down upon the fun that was going forward. And under them were the priest and piper, and the father of Darby Riley, with Darby's 2 brothers and his uncle's son, and there were both the father and mother of Bridget Rooney. And proud enough the old couple were, that night, of their daughter, as good right they had, and for her 4 sisters, with brand new ribbons in their caps, and her 3 brothers all looking as clean and clever as any 3 boys in Munster. And there were uncles and aunts and gossips and cousins enough besides to make a full house of it. And plenty was there to eat and drink on the table, for every one of them, if they had been double the number. Now it happened just as Mrs. Rooney had helped her reverence to the first cut of the pig's head, which was placed before her, beautifully bolstered up with white savies, that the bride gave a sneeze, which made every one at the table start, but not a soul said, "God bless us," all thinking that the priest would have done so, as he ought to have done his duty. No one wished to take the word out of his mouth, which, unfortunately, was preoccupied with pig's head and greens. And after a moment's pause, the fun and merriment of the bridal feast went on without the pious benediction. Of this circumstance, both Billy and his master were no inattentive spectators from their exalted stations. "Ha!" exclaimed the little man, throwing one leg from under him with a joyous flourish, and his eye twinkled with a strange light, and his eyebrows became elevated into the curvature of Gothic arches. "Ha!" said he, leering down at the bride and then up at Billy. I have half of her now, surely. Let her sneeze but twice more, and she is mine, in spite of priest, mast book, and Darby Riley. Again the fair Bridget sneezed, but it was so gently that she blushed so much that few except the little man took or seemed to take any notice, and no one thought of saying, God bless you. Billy, all this time, regarded the poor girl with a most rueful expression of countenance, for he could not help thinking what a terrible thing it was for a nice young girl of 19, with large blue eyes and transparent skin, dimpled cheeks, sufficed with health and joy, to be obliged to marry an ugly little bit of man, who was 1,000 years old, barring a day. At this critical moment, the bride gave a third sneeze, and Billy roared out with all his might, God save us! Whether this exclamation resulted from his soliloquy or from the mere force of habit, he could not tell exactly himself, but no sooner was it uttered than the little man, his face glowing with rage and disappointment, sprung from the beam on which he had perched himself, and shrieking out in a shrill voice of cracked bagpipe, I discharge you from my service, Billy McDaniel! Take that for your wages! Gave poor Billy a most furious kick in the back, which sent his unfortunate servant sprawling upon his face and hands right in the middle of the supper table. If Billy was astonished, how much more so was everyone out of the company into which he was thrown with so little ceremony. But when they heard the story, Father Cooney laid down his knife and fork and married the young couple, out of hand with all speed. And Billy McDaniel danced the rinka at their wedding, and plenty he did drink at it too, which was what he thought more of than the dancing. So this is a story I like for a few reasons. The first is that compared to other stories of, characters like Billy McDaniel, who, isn't behaving like a good, Irish young man should be. He's just going out drinking and not caring for who pays for his drinks and has no sense of responsibility, doesn't care for nothing. Generally the way a story for Billy McDaniel would go is that he would come across the fairy folk and they would teach him a lesson. And what's fun about this story is that, yes, he does kind of learn a lesson, but not really. And he sort of even acknowledges it himself when he first comes across the leprechaun, although he's not actually called that in the story. That's the way that the story's categorized. It's categorized as a leprechaun story. But when he comes across him, and the narrator even says, Daniel fell into bad company, for surely the good people are the worst of all company anyone could come across. He comes across him and accepts a drink from him. And for Billy McDaniel, this is nothing new. He is somebody who accepts drinks from people all the time and doesn't expect to pay. But the leprechaun says, no, you need to be a gentleman and pay for the drink that you just took. And Billy McDaniel's like, well, I could also just put you in my pocket because you're like the size of a blackberry. And the leprechaun is like, you shouldn't talk to me like that. And Billy McDaniel realizes I shouldn't be talking to him like that, and realizes he shouldn't accept drinks from just anyone. And so he is a little scared because he knows about the good people and he knows that they're bad company to be in. But then I think the thing that's so funny is that, Billy McDaniel's getting kind of ready to, he's going to learn a lesson now. He's going to have to be this leprechaun's servant. He's going to be the servant to the leprechaun. The leprechaun will be his master. And so he's kind of shaken in his boots, and they, do the whole thing where the rushes are turned into horses, which is such a neat little trick. And but then his kind of punishment is him and the leprechaun go and break into cellars and just drink their faces off. And Billy's like, well, this isn't bad. This is essentially what I was doing before, except I have way more access now. I mean, if I gotta be this guy's servant, that's what I gotta do, and I think I'm fine with that. And he even tries to compliment the leprechaun, and the leprechaun makes a point of saying, listen, like, you can say what you want, but like, I'm not making a deal with you to be good in the way that you think I should be good. And that part's kind of interesting, because again, for the reader and for Billy McDaniel, we're like, well, I mean, all you do is you go out and drink, and so what could be so bad? But then we come across, you know, the thing that maybe you didn't know you needed to learn. And for me, I just remember reading this the first time. I had so much fun retelling this story to people and being like, well, if you are a young virginal girl, be sure that somebody says, God bless you, each time you sneeze, or else the third time, some leprechaun is waiting up in the, you know, ceiling to pounce down and take you as his wife. And you'll be married to some 1,000-year-old leprechaun who's finally ready to settle down. Which is also another interesting part of the story. But the twist, and that even Billy McDaniel can see, you know, this isn't right, and he has to step in and do the right thing. And so again, like, it's such an interesting story because it is fun. It's a light story compared to a lot of the other interactions with the Irish fairy folk, in the way that a character like Billy McDaniel, he should really have received something a little harsher, but instead he has the opportunity, he's given the opportunity to intercede. And in doing so, he really gives up quite a bit, because he has been shown that if he sticks with his master, if he lets his master take this bride, chances are they're gonna go on each night, breaking into wine cellars, drinking till their heart's content. And so he gives up that opportunity to drink for free every night to save this young girl, because he thinks, she's young and beautiful and got big blue eyes and, you know, pale skin, which is important, I guess. And he sees that it's wrong, and so he gives that up, and I think that's very kind of interesting. The other thing I really like about this story is just the image of this leprechaun perched up in the ceiling, just waiting to collect his bride. And that this is like, I can just imagine sort of like a how-to guide, like how to find a wife. Well, you wait on the ceiling for her to sneeze 3 times and no one to say God bless you, and she's yours for the taking, dear leprechaun friend. You know, and what that would look like. And obviously when you have stories like this, you go, well, there's stories somewhere where the girls are taken. And I wouldn't mind reading one of those stories. I haven't come across a young girl being taken for sneezing 3 times without a God bless you given. But yeah, I just love the image of this leprechaun waiting up there in the rafters, and then when she sneezes for the 3rd time and nobody's saying God bless you, and Billy just leaps out of his skin and says, I think God save us is what he says instead of God bless you, but God save us, which is enough of a blessing, you know, because it's bringing the Lord's name in. And the fairy folk, you know, they can't go with that. And then this wedding celebration, on this wedding celebration, all of a sudden this man comes falling out of the rafters, and after him this tiny little leprechaun, who then says, like, that's it, you are discharged of my service and here's your payment, and kicks him in the butt and gets the heck out of there. And you have this guy who's on the table who's just like, See, the thing is, there was this leprechaun, and like at first I thought he was like cool because we'd go out drinking every night, so he was kind of like my buddy, but I was like his servant, he was my master. But then he brought me here, and this is like the first time, I need to be clear, this is like the first time he's done this, and he made it, he told me that he was planning on marrying you, actually, and was waiting for you to sneeze 3 times so he could claim you as his wife. You know how the leprechauns are. Anyways, so I had to say God bless you because, I mean, you're so sweet. And the 2 of you guys, wouldn't that be nice if you're together? And everyone's like, huzzah! And then the priest just marries them really quick, you know, in case, because she's been sneezing quite a bit. In case that another leprechaun comes and is like ready on the perch to take her away and they forgot to say God bless you, so they marry her really quick. And then the dancing starts, and where do we have our friend, Billy? What's the lesson he's learned? It's not too much, except that, leprechauns can be fun, for drinking buddies, but at the end of the day, they're gonna eventually want to marry some young human girl and steal her away with her sneezes. And so Billy starts the story just drinking his face off and ends the story drinking his face off. And so it's such a funny story because all these strange things happen and there's opportunity for a lesson in it. But the main thing I come away with is that, if you're a young virginal girl, then make sure somebody says God bless you after you sneeze, unless you'd like to be married to a leprechaun. I hope you guys have enjoyed this story tonight. As always, comment down below. Any questions, any comments. If you have suggestions for the next fairy tale I should read, go on and comment down below. If you've got anything left, guys, bottoms up, and cheers.